Good afternoon. I call the Senate caucus meeting to order, and I would like to have the roll call. Do the roll call. Oh, I guess I'm doing the roll call, huh? I don't have it in front of me. Senator Roth?
Anybody got one?
Are we missing anybody? Let's just do that. I think everybody's here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have everybody here. That's a little bit easier. Usually you have something you can go off of here, but I don't have a check the box thing, so. We do have a quorum present. Welcome to everybody, to all of our new senator-elects. I'd like to welcome Senator Andre Jacques, Senator Kathy Bernier, and Senator Dale Koyenga to our caucus. As well as acknowledging all the wins that we had. We were able to maintain the majority and pick up a seat on top of it, so that puts us in a little bit better position to do some good things, I think. So with that, I would like to just offer congratulations to everybody who is here, and I look forward to working with everybody over the next biennium so we can continue to get Wisconsin moving forward. Announcements? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a very good idea. So why don't we just have each one of our new senators just...
Well, let me just jump in, because I think we are going to do that. I want to recognize some staff as well. So if we could, if you want to start with the elections, and then we'll move kind of in that, into that area, and we'll go from there. So,
all right. So with that, we'll move into the election process. So the purpose of our meeting today is to organize the Republican Majority Party Caucus of the Wisconsin State Senate for the 2019-2020 legislative session. And first we will be electing the majority leader. But before I call for any nominations, I remind members that a second is not required, but may be made. And also a member may nominate only one candidate. So with that, are there any nominations for majority leader?
Yes.
Senator Darling.
I'd like to nominate Scott Walker.
no.
Just kidding. You notice he's our governor. He didn't make it. I'd like to nominate Scott Fitzgerald. And I'd like to talk a little bit about his wonderful accomplishments. You know, here we are sitting together in the majority, and the Assembly lost just one seat, and yet we lost all of our statewide races. And I think it says a lot for this caucus and for our candidates who did such a good job. So I want to give everybody a big round of applause. I want to say that it wouldn't be possible without Scott Fitzgerald. And I want to mention Judy Rhodes in this message too, because they were just an incredible team. I think recruiting the candidates and actually giving the support that the candidates needed was phenomenal. I think raising the money was phenomenal. I think that the messaging was really important. We stayed on message. And I think it takes leadership to do what Scott has done. And I know sometimes we take him for granted, but let's look at the past. If you look at how our majority has grown, in 2011 we had 17 seats, 13, 18, 2015, 19, and in 2017, 20. And now we're coming back gaining a seat. So I really think that that kind of leadership speaks for itself. And what I really enjoy about Fitz's leadership is he really tries to make sure that all of our voices are heard. And you know, when in the Senate, it's different from the Assembly because everybody has a voice. I'm not saying the Assembly doesn't have a voice, but it's really different when you have smaller numbers. And I think our caucus really appreciates the fact that he understands that we have different districts and that they all have different needs and interests, and we all have to represent our districts. And for that, Fitz, I'm really grateful. And I also want to say he has vision, because right away he started looking at candidates a long time before everybody else was thinking about the next election. And I think what we need to be grateful is for that kind of leadership. And I think I mentioned last year when I talked about or 2 years ago about his leadership. I think his leadership and work in the military defines his style because he's really used to using his talent, looking at the opposition, looking at his resources, and making the most of them, and being deliberate. Fitz is a deliberate person. He doesn't make decisions lightly or whimsically. He really wants to make sure it's the right thing to do, and I'm really grateful for that. So with that, I'd like to nominate Scott Fitzgerald.
I would also like to second that nomination. And I think it's really important when you look to somebody from a leadership role, that individual have that level of integrity that needs to be there when the important decisions are being made in the process. And I would just like to reflect back to 2010 when I was recruited by then the minority leader at that point, and of course his right-hand lady was Judy Rhodes, who's my adopted daughter. That's another story. She was my daughter's college roommate, and all of a sudden I was running for the Senate. And the one thing that I learned over that time, and with working with Senator Fitzgerald, was the fact that he never put pressure on me to make a specific decision on basically any piece of legislation. He always said, go earn your votes. When you have your votes, then we'll take it to the floor. And there was no pressure to go do something that you did not already make the decision you were going to do. And that's the type of man we have in leadership that brings people together, and I think we need to honor that. Plus, it's Veterans Week, and he's also a colonel, so Colonel, sir. We do honor that also, and I think he brings that leadership to the table, too. So with that, I am honored to second him. Anybody else want to add anything? Are there any other nominations for Majority Leader? Go ahead, Senator.
I'll give this the unnecessary second. It's a good chance to suck up to the majority leader anyway, so I let that go to waste. Fitz and I got elected in the same year. I was elected to the Assembly and he was elected to the Senate. And why anybody'd want to stay around here that many years in the same house, I give him a lot of credit because I'm sure he has had lots of opportunities to go other places and make probably a little bit more money than we make here. But he has chosen to stay in the Senate, and I'm very grateful for that. When he was first elected, we were in the minority. He was our minority leader, and I think it was 2 sessions we were in the minority, and then we became, through his hard work, we took the majority, and we've been on a roll ever since. And if you look at this election, when, as Alberta said, you know, we lost all our statewide races, the Assembly lost 1, we picked up a seat in the Senate, which is totally amazing. And if you look at across the country, I think Republicans lost like 300 and some legislative seats on Tuesday, and for us to come up +1 is fantastic, and it's a lot of work, but it's a lot of leadership. And one of the things that if you really sit and evaluate Fitz's leadership style, you know, he's sort of like Aaron Rodgers, but probably doesn't get paid as much. Yeah, I thought that.
Don't wait till the last 3 minutes, though.
Yeah, well, the thing is, he doesn't telegraph his passes like a good quarterback doesn't do. And so, you know, he's not out talking about stuff until he knows where his caucus is. And I think that, as members, we should really appreciate that. And he has a quiet servant leadership type of leadership where he is very loyal to his members, to us, and makes sure that we are all successful, and really never gets us exposed for, you know, puts us in a serious box that is not a healthy place to be. And so he's a man of his word, as you heard, and I think that's how he was raised in his military background. And we are very fortunate that he is still here and that he will be our leader in this challenging time, because I don't think you weren't leader ever when we had a Democratic Democrat governor, were you?
He's a minority leader.
Yeah, but you were minority, but not, so we're on new territory, and I have all kinds of faith that he will help us get through these 2 years and be successful and do good things for the state of Wisconsin, because that's really why we're here. And when we fight amongst ourselves, and now we have a governor of the other party, and our goal, I think, is to make sure that we do good things for the state of Wisconsin, but not give up our principles. And I know with Fitz's leadership, we will not, and we will do good things for the state of Wisconsin. So I will second for Fitz to be our majority leader. Thanks.
Thank you.
So with that, are there any other nominations for majority leader? Are there any other nominations for majority leader? Are there any other nominations for majority leader? Having heard none, we will go to a voice vote. Since there are no other nominations, all those in favor of Senator Fitzgerald for majority leader, please say aye. Aye. The ayes have it. Senator Scott Fitzgerald is unanimously reelected as Senate Majority Leader for the 2019-20 session. Congratulations. Senator.
Thank you very much. That was very gracious of everybody. I couldn't do it here, obviously, with my staff in the Capitol, but coming back in the majority at 19 seats can't happen without the committee to elect Republican Senate. And this time around, that office down at Republican Party Wisconsin headquarters included a fantastic team that did a wonderful job, which those of you that were up for re-election probably had weekly conversations, if not daily conversations with them. And that included Matt Hinkle, who's sitting behind me from Roger Roth's office, Rachel Keith from Alberta Darling's office, and Judy Rhodes, who was brought up earlier, who is here. So I want to give them a round of applause because they did a wonderful job. And thanks to the caucus for once again trusting me as your majority leader. I really appreciate it. So thank you. Go on to the next one.
Thank you, Senator. Next up, we have the Assistant Majority Leader's position. And are there any nominations for the Assistant Senate Majority Leader?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Dan Fine.
And do we have a second? Or did you want to?
No, we have a second. I'd like to talk about Dan.
Yes, I would like to second the nomination.
And I'd like to talk about Dan. I think Dan will bring a great, unique perspective to our caucus as Assistant Majority Leader. And as I mentioned before, in the Senate, we all have our voices, and we all have to be heard. And I think Dan will do a great job in listening to you as well. And I looked at his history because he was the 6th congressional chairman of the party during a time when we were really working to develop, through the recalls, through the elections where we gained majorities. Dan was really much the leader behind that Republican effort, and I saw him in action when I worked in the Oshkosh area, and I noticed the camaraderie and the teamwork and how he took care and feeding of volunteers very seriously. And I think those skills will really be an asset to us in our Senate because he really cares about having a unified voice. And I agree with him that right now in this point of our history, while it's really good to be individuals and to recognize all of our priorities in our districts, we have to think of the overall priority of our Wisconsin citizens. And as senators, we have to remember that we've had a major reform movement in Wisconsin, and we have to make sure that reform movement continues and that the initiatives that have been put in place, I'm not going to go through all the success that we've had, but I've never seen the state in better shape. I don't know how all of you feel about it, but I have never seen the state in better shape. And I think that we have the responsibility to carry that reform movement forward and to do the best we can with a Democratic governor. And I know that Dan is going to make sure that that unified voice stays heard and stays united. And so for those reasons, I'd like to nominate Dan and note that he has 2 kids in Madison, so it's nice for him when he's here, and that he has a great support system at home. So with that, I'd like to nominate Dan Fine as Assistant Majority Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think Dan, a couple of his best traits. Number one, he's a hard worker. He works hard in this building, and he's also has worked very, very hard out on the campaigns this past session. And you know, you can't replace hard work, and you can't sometimes teach people how to work hard. And Dan's one of those hard workers. Secondly, he's got common sense. He gets things. He's got a good read on people. So he brings a lot of talent, a lot of skills to this caucus, and he'll do a great job as the Assistant Majority Leader.
Agreed. Are there any other nominations for Assistant Majority Leader?
I would move that we close the nomination and cast a unanimous ballot for Senator Dan Fine.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None?
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Next up is for Senate President. Are there any nominations for Senate President? Senator Darling.
Again, I'd like to nominate Roger Roth as our President of our Senate. He's an amazing leader. And I asked Roger, what do you want me to say about you, Roger? When I asked Dan, I said, Dan, what do you want me to say about you? He said, I want you to say that I'll bring a perspective from the outside world in. When I asked Roger, Roger said, I want you to say I'm a father, I'm a member of the military, and I'm a really good soccer player. I think you saw his ad where he was playing kickball with his kids, and that ad got more conversation going in his district. And he'd go to the doors and want to talk about issues, and they'd say, oh, that was a great ad with you and your kids playing kickball. But I think what that ad showed was how much he cares about his family and people. And when people were talking about Roger being up this year and being concerned about his seat, I thought, you know what? I know that Roger's going to do really well because he does great constituent work. And you know from his work promoting a relationship with Kimberly Clark, which we'll be talking about later, I mean, he just feels so strongly about helping his district that he'll go the extra mile to make sure that his voice is heard for his constituents. And you know, in the end, I think that's what people really want. Somebody who has integrity, who they can trust, and who'll listen to them and will fight for them. And so with that, I'd like to nominate Roger as our Senate President.
Anybody for a second?
I'd like to second that nomination.
Seconded by Senator Strobel.
Thank you very much. A few words here. I very much appreciate someone who brings a multi-dimensional talent to what they do. And when I see Roger, I see the things that Alberta ticked off. I see the family man. I see a businessman. And I also see the military background. And, you know, when you are juggling those 3 things, it means you're pretty good at what you do. And you got to be good at all of them if you're going to do any one of them. And what I also see is someone who public service is in his heart. And he exudes that. You see that. You can just tell that when you meet him that that's what he's about, public service and doing the right thing. And I admire that. He's steady. He's solid. And I really think he's a great example for all of us here in terms of how we do our job and how we conduct ourselves. And I know Roger would always have the utmost reputation to uphold, you know, our reputation here in terms of what we do in the Capitol. Roger's smart, and Roger's a hard worker, as I said, indicating all those dimensions that Roger tackles on a daily basis. And, you know, especially I know when you throw the family thing in there with a whole lot of little kids, I can relate to that. And so, you know, not only is I know that's his number one focus, but that also tells me that he's focused on the future with that young family. And to me, I think everything we do in politics here should always be focused on the future and the long term and not the short term. So with that, I'm greatly honored to nominate Roger Roth for this position. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I just add that even though Roger was up for a very challenging election period, he said to his staff, Matt Hinkle, go to SERS and work for the team, and I think that says a lot about him. So thank you, Matt, and thank you, Roger, for making that happen.
Are there any other nominations for Senate President?
I move we close the nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Senator Roth for President of the Senate.
Second, anybody? Second, Senator Petrowski. All those for closing nominations and casting a unanimous ballot, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion unanimously carried. Congratulations. You want to address him? Or gonna wait? Okay, he's going to pass for now. Next up will be Senator for Senate Pro Tem. Are there any nominations for Senate Pro Tem?
Mr. Caucus Chair.
Or,
I would like to nominate Howard Markline as President Pro Tempore. I'll say a few words about our current President Pro Tempore, Senator Markline. First of all, I think he's performed exceptionally well in this role over the last session, assisting our president and making sure that our floor sessions are run very smoothly. Howard's very level-headed and has the temperament needed to, as well as our president, to run those meetings in a orderly fashion and keep things under control and things moving along and trying to keep things under control. Additionally, I served as vice chair of the committee that Senator Markline chairs, the Revenue, Financial Institutions, and Rural Issues, and I saw how well he's worked in that area. For the financial institutions, how well he runs meetings in that area, make sure that we get good hearings and focus on the issues that need to be focused on at the committee level. And finally, Howard's done just a fantastic job on JFC, digging into the issue, knowing all the different issues that affect not only his district but the entire state of Wisconsin, advocating for those issues that are important for moving our state forward. And it's great that we have him as a JFC member to bring his expertise and knowledge in that area and his hard work. And I think I said finally for that one, but I'm going to add one more finally on this one. We also see how hard Howard works outside the building. He's probably, some of us go out and campaign for 6 to 9 months. Howard's campaigning 4 years. Not just because to keep his job, but it's so important to serve the district that you serve. Campaigning goes hand in hand with reaching out to your district and serving your constituents and making sure that their needs are met and you're their voice in the community. So I think we all should aspire to be leaders inside and outside the building like Howard. I tried to find 100 reasons to vote for Howard for President Pro Tempore, but I think I found a good 4 reasons, so hopefully you join me in unanimously supporting the reappointment as Senator Markline to President Pro Tempore.
Senator Tiffany.
Mr. Chair, I would like to second that motion, and the reason that I am doing that is because when Howard Markline calls me and asks for something, I do it.
That gets it in a nutshell, doesn't it? With that, are there any more nominations for Senate Pro Tem?
I move we close the nominations and cast a unanimous ballot for Senator Howard Markline for second.
Okay, so we have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Next up. Howard, did you want to say something? Howard's good. Next up is the Majority Caucus Chair. I will pass the gavel to my Vice Chair.
All right. So next we will elect the Senate Majority Caucus Chair. Are there any nominations for Senate Majority Caucus Chair? Senator Fitzgerald.
Mr. Chair, I nominate Senator Wongard to be the caucus chair again. I think he's done a great job over the last couple of years. I think that's replaced Senator Harsdorf, I think. No, it's a lot of work behind the scenes, especially prior to days on the floor. And I think both Van and his staff do a wonderful job with this position. So I'm honored to nominate Senator Wongard.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Senator Olson. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations?
I would once again move that we close the nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Senator Weingard for caucus chair.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay.
Thank you. All this pressure.
Yeah.
Next one up is the Majority Caucus Vice Chair, and I would like to nominate Senator Teston for that position. He has just done an awesome job as the Vice Chair. He's going to get more work this coming session if elected. He's really done a good job. He's got a good heart. He works very hard. He works well with, I think, everybody in the caucus, and is always open to ideas. And just thinking back to when we were working on an airport, he brought cookies. They were really good too. So keeping that in mind, I think that we would do well to have him as the vice chair.
I second that.
Second? Okay. Are there any other nominations?
I would move we close the nominations and cast unanimous ballot for Senator Teston for Vice Caucus Chair.
Second? Second. We have a second. All those in favor in closing the nomination and casting a unanimous vote, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Congratulations, Mr. Vice Chair.
All right.
Moving right along.
Yeah, so congratulations everyone in leadership positions. Thank you very much. I know that working with our office, we've got a pretty good relationship, I think, with that entire team, and look forward to moving forward in this biennium as well. So I just want to jump back to the campaigns a little bit. Every Monday morning throughout the election cycle, I would be at the Republican Party of Wisconsin. We'd have a conference call, and we'd get updates from across the state. Kind of tell us what's going on and who's working and who's not. But there are some staff people, I think, that did a wonderful job out there for us this time, and just wanted to mention their names. Some of them are with us, some of them are not. In the first, we had Rob Kovac, who I think is here with us. In the fifth, we had Patrick McNulty. In the ninth, we had Daryl Carlson, who was helping out. In the 17th, both Peter Hines and Katie Prangy were helping. Katie's behind us. In the 21st, Eric Barber. In the 23rd, R.J. Lambert went up, I think, and helped Kathy. In the 25th, Ashley Chaya, who has done a wonderful job for us cycle after cycle, and Brian Rodet. And then in the 31st, Dusty Truex, who was helping Mel Gibson up there. Jerry Ponio from Senator Darling's office also helped coordinate staff and volunteers throughout the state. So I just wanted to, by name, thank those staff people because I think they did a wonderful job for us. So please give them a round of applause. I think it would be appropriate to go around the caucus and have each one of the incumbent senators that was up for re-election just give us 2 minutes on how their races went and how they feel about being back, and then also for the new members of our caucus that were successful in their races. So I guess you can go around the room. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's great to be back. Let me start with that. There is nothing more exhilarating in the world, as you all know, than winning your election. This was a hard-fought campaign. I mentioned when we were together as a team here at the beginning of the summer how those of us who go out there and do our jobs consistently, day in and day out, are going to come back regardless of what happens. And I think you've seen here, not just myself, but our entire team. You've got a collection of senators and staff who have gone out there and done their job. My proof... The campaign started for me in the midst of a snowstorm, had 23 inches of snow dumped over nomination signature weekend. We went through the harrowing heat of June and July, lost 17 pounds and a wedding ring somewhere in the 19th district. My wedding ring slipped off my finger for any of the treasure hunters out there. We endured the mosquito pestilence of September. They were terrible in the 19th Senate District. And we brought it home here in October and November. So I just want to thank everybody in this room who is part of that and look forward to serving with each and every one of you this upcoming session. Thank you.
Senator Darling. Oh, you were up, that's right, okay. Next up is Devin.
I echo a lot of what Roger said. It's great to be back. I'm excited for another session, my second session, so getting things done, keeping on moving Wisconsin forward. Thanks to my team. One of my staffers out working my race, Daryl Carlson, and two of my staff members also went out to help out on the 25th. So, and my chief of staff even took a lot of time to help out with races around the state. So I'm excited about having 19 strong coming back and working with you all. I think Roger understated the pestilence of mosquitoes in September. It was pretty horrible. Senator Tesson was knocking with me a day, and we finally just quit because we'd stop at a door in the middle of the day, and there'd be 30 mosquitoes landing on us. It was pretty rough out there. But campaigns are long and hard, but rewarding in the end when you get to the finish line. So I'm excited to be back. Thanks.
Senator Capigat, tell us about the rough race, buddy.
This was brutal. It was the most brutal campaign I've ever had. Best campaign staff ever, though, because we came in at 97%, so I think I got the best campaign staff out there. It was really nice for the first time ever after some brutal races to not have a big campaign, so I really enjoyed that and got out a little bit to help other candidates, but good to be back for my first full session.
Yeah. Senator Jacques.
And we go from somebody who didn't have a contested race to somebody who had 4 this year. So it's been quite a roller coaster, and it's quite an honor and opportunity to be in this room and to be able to have a chance to have more of an impact and work with people that I respect so much, and have had a chance to work with really all of you on different pieces of legislation over the years. You know, I actually am a 13-gallon blood donor through the Red Cross. I think I probably doubled that just with that week of the most intense floodwater mosquitoes. So, yeah, it's just an honor to be here and to represent the 6 counties of northeastern Wisconsin that I get a chance to help out moving forward. So, thank you.
Welcome. Senator Bernier.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. I did have an opponent, and I'm very accustomed to being a target. I'm usually one of the top 3 in the assembly, and I started out being a target, but fortunately my opponent didn't understand the process entirely. And so when I was asked why, the press covered him because he had a rally, and I thought that was very interesting. And so they asked me what I thought about it, and I said, well, he should be having a rally. That's what you do. So I consider running an election a marathon, not a sprint. And so you just pace yourself and you continue from April, knocking on doors, getting signatures, and just continue the process. Had a lot of fun at a couple parades. We decided that after 20-some parades, it gets a little boring. So we had luau's and passed out leis, and my grandchildren were mermaids. It was wonderful. Pleasure to be here.
Welcome. Senator Kanga.
No one says it better than my friend Winston Churchill, who says that there's nothing more exhilarating than being shot at without effect. And, it feels good to be here. I just simply want to thank Senator Fitzgerald and their team. And we had a beautiful team in Patrick and Sandy and Anna and Louise. And then on behalf of everyone here, I just want to thank our families who stood behind us through this. It's definitely a family sacrifice. The campaign we went through was not fun. In fact, I think from feedback we have, it was one of the more negative campaigns that they've ever seen in the state of Wisconsin. But it made me stronger in my faith. It made our family stronger, and it made our community stronger. And so I hope that the lessons learned from that as a body is who we are as far as civil discourse about debating issues and ideas. And that's what I look forward to doing. And this team was there through that process. I know who we are. I know what we stand for. And what I like about the campaign process is and I think all our districts are large enough to say this, is the vast diversity in our districts. Knocking on someone's door who starts crying and says, I can't vote because I'm a felon. And you say, well, I will deserve second chances. I know you don't have a vote, but I got your back. We're going to work on second chances. And then knocking on the door of the CEO of Fortune 500 company the next day. And we represent all those people. And that's what we're going to do. And I just want to thank you for your support to be in the position to do that.
Thank you. 11th Senate District. What happened was that I think the voters in the 11th Senate District blessed me in recognition of the work I have done in the last 4 years in sending me back here without having an opponent. So I am very pleased to be back and will continue to represent as well as I can and to fight for we the people. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I represent the 29th Senate District, which is about 6 counties across central and northern Wisconsin. I guess I would like to thank most importantly my family, my campaign manager, my staff, not only for what they do here, but how they help me in every way. I also want to thank them for all the work that they did for the team. This was somewhat of a unique, every election is different. They always change. This one I saw a lot more social media and all those things of technology that weren't really utilized that much 4 years ago. I've never experienced not having an opponent, but there were some things that were very unique, and I think everybody knows. Elections are made up of meeting the people, doing the doors, doing parades. I think I have 54 in my district. But I was in church one Sunday morning, and there was 2 little old ladies that came up to me in church. And the first came up for something that she wanted me to help her with. And the second was a little old lady, a grandma, about 85 years old. She walked in a walker. And she kind of grabbed my sleeve and pulled me closer to her because she didn't want to talk real loud in church. And she said, Jerry, I just want you to know I pray for you every day. With that, to all of you, thank you.
Well, thank you. Good to be back. 17th Senate District. It was a good race and good outcome. I'm so grateful for the staff that I've had on the ground. Katie Prange, my chief of staff, right behind me, worked incredibly hard on the campaign, and also Peter Haynes, a hardworking young man who we spent most of our time together. He lived with me for the last 6 months, and so my wife said it was kind of scary because he just like you, all you do is you get up and you want to work and you want to, pound doors and all this stuff. But he was running 47,000 steps a day, doing doors and lit drops. That's a marathon if you do the math on that. So I didn't hit that level myself, but did knock on thousands and thousands of doors. And I think a campaign is all based on relationships. And, you don't win that in the last month or 2 months or whatever, as somebody said earlier, but it's the last 4 years. It's ongoing relationships, the problem solving, the constituent assistance that we provide over the years and stuff. So, and we work, and my office has worked very, very hard in that kind of stuff since I first got elected, and those relationships pay off. And so I got there's a lot of people that crossed the aisle to support me this year, and I'm so grateful for that and grateful to be back. I did get a couple of dog bites, which isn't out of the ordinary. I'm up to been bitten 4 times now at the doors, so but I'm getting a little smarter now. But great to be back, as part of this caucus and give back to serving my district.
I was up this time. Somebody just asked me today, were you up this time? But no, I'm pretty lucky because the 13th district goes all the way from Waukesha to Dane County. And just had a ton of support again this time around. Same opponent that I had 4 years ago. And so the discussions were about the same. Her primary issue was global warming. I don't think it resonated with the residents of the 13th district, but we came out fine. So I always thank my constituents because they know I'm part of the leadership team down here, so you end up spending a lot of time in Madison, but went well. So thank you.
Well, I would like to just thank the Lord for blessing me with all the good people that were there to assist me and were not behind me, but alongside of me. I really appreciated all the work that my team did, my campaign manager, Eric Barber, who came down and taught me how to tie a bow tie. So you'll be seeing those on and off throughout the session.
Oh, boy. Great.
We'll have classes available. There will be classes available. But we had fun when we were out there. We knocked on doors. Eric, a lot younger, so he could do a lot more doors. He was a lot quicker. And he probably talked less than I do, too, so that probably helped him, too. Great staff. My staff came down and helped. My family that was there, my wife for doing all the things that she did. But the Lord gets the glory for all of the positive things that happen on the trail. And I'd like to thank my opponent because she wasn't nasty. We actually had some good discussions, and I think it's good that we look at what's happening on a national level, and then we look at what happens here. And oftentimes we don't have the nastiness that is happening at the national levels. We do have more civility, and I think that this is something that we really have to look at, and we really have to continue to address. It's not changing our principles or compromising where we're at. It's about just being able to talk to each other and be a problem solver. When I was in law enforcement, we had PSAs, problem-solving assignments. You knew what you couldn't do. You knew what you had to do. You sat down and you solved it. I think that's what this caucus does. We have a very good relationship between everybody here, and I thank my colleagues on the other side of the aisle for helping us get there, because when we had 2011 and everybody went to Illinois and we stayed here, we were locked up in a room half of this size for weeks. And that helped to galvanize this caucus so that we not only knew each other as an elected official, we knew each other's family, we knew where you came from, and we had good discussions around that huge table with the chalkboard in Mike Ellis's room. And I think that is what this is all about. Last session, we had about 93 or 94% of the bills that went through were bipartisan bills. There's no reason why we can't continue to do that, but we'll have to be a little bit more strategic with how we deal with issues. So I look forward to working with the caucus. I want to thank everybody for being open and accessible and working to make sure that our principles aren't compromised. So with that, Mr. Majority Leader.
We are going to take a 10-minute break, and I'm going to then move to close the caucus. But I know we have a lot of media here, and it's probably going to take 10 minutes for everybody to get out of the room. So we'll take a 10-minute break here, and we'll come back and close caucus.
So come back a couple minutes after 2.
Yep. Thank you.
We are in recess.
Where's that Kringle?
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader.
Where's that Kringle?